be able to deliver on many of these critically important issues.
With the slow pace of economic growth, unemployment sitting as high as 26%, and other bread and butter issues, it will be interesting to see how South Africans consider these issues as they make their marks on those ballot boxes when they vote. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, it would be interesting to know how any possible outcome of the polls will affect their economy. A number of municipalities will exchange hands, leading to different political parties controlling different budgets. Precious Lugayeni is an economist at the University of Mangosuthu Buthelezi Department of Economics, and she joins us now live in studio. Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you, Tabile.
Now, let's look at this. Will a free and fair outcome help us avert a looming credit rating?
You see, it should not only be free and fair, it should be free of violence in particular, because the rating agencies are watching, and they're coming here in December to rate us. Remember, we are one level above junk status now. So these elections are coming at the time when the economy is not doing well and there's a possibility of downgrade. All those things are important. These elections have to be free, fair, and no violence at all. Even shortly after the elections, there should be no violence.
Now, the prospects of economic growth are really dim. I mean, we saw that right now in the intro that I linked to. What about the effect on markets? Because that's also something we need to watch closely, especially during this time.
You see, when economic growth is going to be zero, it means that there's going to be no growth. And then when there's no growth, it means that it's going to be difficult to create jobs. Then the markets are critical then, because the markets are watching, as I've said earlier, the markets are watching as to what is happening in South Africa. Are we investor-friendly destination, or we are not a friendly investor destination? They might say, if we are downgraded, then we lose what we actually already have. But mainly for these local government elections, they come at a point when the buzzword in government is cost-cutting and austerity measures. So these municipalities might get less than what they used to get before, because there isn't enough money. You will recall that one of the things that plague these municipalities is financial mismanagement. So there's no room for that now, because there's no money. So the little money that we have has to be used correctly and efficiently. Coming to the issue of unemployment, that has been a buzzword as well. Well, the municipalities have to, through their IDPs and LEDs, indicate what they're going to do to create jobs. But taking into account also that it is not really the responsibility of government alone to create jobs.
And I want to touch on that. What is the reality in terms of whether or not municipalities can even create jobs? Because we have a lot of political parties now going out and saying we are going to create jobs if you vote us into power. As an economist, is that even realistic at this point in time, looking at the budgets that they are going to get?
It's not. I think it's difficult. It's not very, very realistic, because as I was just saying, that job creation is not the responsibility of government as such. What the government should do in terms of job creation is to create a stable environment, a stable political environment, which is a sine qua non for job creation. That is why these elections have to be free and fair, so that we can be able to attract foreign investors.
Now, let's go back to the financial mismanagement. You mentioned that there's actually no room for that at this point in time. It brings us to the question of political parties, possibly new political parties, getting new municipalities and, of course, new budgets that they didn't have before. Now, are they prepared to carry on these responsibilities based on your sentiments and looking at the manifestos as well as the campaigns?
Well, the budget will be tight. As I said, there's cost-cutting measures that are important in government now. What the fear that we might have with the new parties that have never had this budget before is the promises they've made to the people, that we shall give you this free, this free, that. And then when they can't deliver on those, we can expect violence. In other words, these promises have to be kept, but some of them will be difficult to keep, just like job creation. Job creation will be difficult to achieve. You will recall that every election and every party will promise people jobs, but as we speak now, unemployment is higher than it was in 2008, which means that we are not making any inroads into job creation. In the first quarter of this year, 15,000 jobs were lost. and most of them were lost in mining, manufacturing, and agriculture. And those are our productive sectors. So these municipal elections come at that time. Whether these municipalities have a role to play in that remains to be seen.
Now, listening to people on the ground, especially in your less urban areas and more rural areas, a lot of the issues are bread and butter issues. When you look at service delivery, it's water and sanitation, and access to health, access to education. What's the reality in terms of that, and what political parties can do or will be doing, and will they be able to afford it come, after the elections?
Well, the rates have to be paid. You can't promise people free, because if you promise them, you won't be able to deliver. Where are you going to get the money to deliver what is required? Because what is free does not mean that it has not been paid for. What it means is that we have not paid, but somebody else have to pay. But these municipalities have to be careful about such utterances. Coming to education, last year, you will recall that we had a big campaign, #Fees Must Fall,
yes.
And that has not gone. There's still a threat that the president has to announce free education for next year, which might be a challenge in municipalities, because when that happens, it will happen in a municipality. It might be a national competence, but it will happen in a municipality. So the municipality must be ready to handle such things when they happen. But because of cost-cutting measures, austerity measures, poor economic growth, less money for tax, we might see problems in the municipalities.
Now, in your perspective, what do municipalities need to do right now to ensure that, there is sufficient service delivery without the financial mismanagement? Because now they're going to be caught between, a rock and a hard place, where they want to provide services, but there's not enough money to do that.
They must cut costs. One of the costs they need to cut is the personnel. One of the criticisms of municipalities is that in some municipalities, the greater part of the budget goes to salaries, which means that they peak in terms of people who work there. They need to cut that, but I'm not suggesting that there should be retrenchments. But
what are the realities? Because as an economist, you're here to tell us the realities. We don't have money. Where do we find the money? That's the first question. And then secondly, how do we ensure that we cut costs wherever we can in order to ensure that we can provide the services that have been promised?
But it's clear that we are not going to get money from government because the government purse is shrinking. But secondly, I think the main issue is to learn to do more with less. That's the main thing.
And how do we do that?
It's to prioritize correctly, use the resources that you have efficiently, no wastage. You can still do more with the current budget. There should be no wastage, no fruitless expenditure, no financial mismanagement, but you must learn to do more with less.
Now, just finally, let's look at the highly contested major municipalities. What happens if the new players get those metros?
Well, if the new players get those metros, which is almost unlikely, one, the ANC will lose the municipalities that have a strong revenue base, and then the ANC will become a rural party. And then once it becomes a rural party, rural areas do not have strong revenue base, and then it will be difficult for them to do service delivery.
Thank you very much for joining us. Some interesting insights there on the economics. I like your realistic stance on business and money and economics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tabi.
That was Precious Lugayeni. She's an economist at the University of Mangosuthu Buthelezi Department of Economics, talking to us about the economics behind the elections 2016. We'll have more for you after the break. Stay with us.
Now, this is Trends, of course, your one-stop serving of all that's juicy and trending in the world of entertainment and showbiz. My name, of course, is Refiel Wemwilo.
I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is our talk.
A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jolly.
My name is Dumile Matters.
William Mulebati.
My name is Mpo Sedu. What time is it? It's question time.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
brought you the elections manifestos.
We have taken you on the campaign trails, the rallies and the door-to-door campaigns, and we caught the tension on tape.
And even the drama when internal battles spilled into the public eye.